It's a picture of a lonely, wandering sheep with a relentless, heartsick shepherd searching. It's a picture of a joyful reunion and a triumphant and tender walk home in the arms of the shepherd, back to the flock. Of all the pictures that we're going to talk about this Christmas season, the most powerful and possibly the most personal is this one, the sheep and his shepherd. So how many of us have seen a picture like this one? A picture of the good shepherd lovingly and gently carrying his sheep either in his arms or on his shoulders. More than any of the other pictures that we're talking about, this one speaks directly to our heart. It speaks to that part of our heart that feels maybe fearful, tired, hurting, or maybe even helpless. It's a part of ourselves that maybe we don't talk about or admit to very often, but we know it's there. A picture like this one reminds us that no matter what, no matter how often we stray, no matter how often we're attacked, no matter how often we stumble, our good shepherd is there with us every day, walking in front of us, guiding us, carrying us. That was the picture that Jesus wanted his disciples to hear. And it's the picture that he wants you to see this morning. A picture that cuts straight to your heart with a message straight from God's heart. Sometimes the world of sports speaks, even when I'm speaking. In the Western world today, we don't see too many shepherds out in the fields anymore. But in Jesus' day, it would have been something that you would have seen all of the time. You would have seen the shepherds bringing their flocks along the roads. You would have seen the shepherds bringing their flock into the city, to the market. You would have heard the cries of the sheep as they were being sheared for their wool. But this picture of being a shepherd, it wasn't an easy job. This job of being a shepherd, it was a tough job. Your life was your sheep. It was a 24/7 job. You walked everywhere with your sheep. You slept with your sheep. You ate with your sheep. If you weren't out in the fields, you brought your sheep into a pen that was connected right to your house so that you could watch them. And if you were poor as a shepherd, if you couldn't afford the pen, you sometimes kept your sheep right in your home. Think about that. You would be making dinner, and there would be your flock running around your feet. Except it's not your kids, it's actually your sheep, making chaos in your home. And on top of this 24/7 job, the job of being a shepherd was a dangerous job. Shepherds had to be vigilant against wolves that prowled the Israel wilderness. Shepherds had to keep watch over their flock against strangers, thieves who would come and steal a sheep right out from underneath them. And then when you were walking on the path, if you came to a canyon, you had to be aware that there might be thieves waiting to ambush you, waiting to beat you, maybe even kill you for your sheep. And if the wolves and the thieves aren't enough, as a shepherd, you had to keep an eye out on the other shepherds as well. It was a common practice for shepherds to actually walk their flock really close to another flock to try and, maybe entice a few more sheep over into their flock. Because if my flock grows, so does my bank account. So when it comes down to it, this picture of the sheep and his shepherd, it's not a picture of a leisurely stroll through a beautiful green field. It really is actually a picture of a person, a man, standing against constant and very real threats lurking around every single corner. threats that are there to separate their sheep from their shepherd. Because that's the other part of this picture that Jesus wants you to know about. Sheep being frightened into scattering. Now, most of you know that sheep are herd animals. They like to stay together. They'll stay in clumps in the field. So when you see a sheep wandering off by itself, more often than not, that means that that flock has been scared into running. If something startles the flock, if something startles the sheep, they will run. And if they run and get separated, they'll wander by themselves, trying to find their way back to their flock. Sure, sometimes sheep will stray because they see greener pastures over in the next field. They'll do that from time to time, but most of the time, if you see a sheep by itself, it's been scared into running. The sheep have been scattered. So this morning we actually heard Peter say to us, "For you were straying like sheep." As I just said, straying sheep are frightened sheep. This is a picture that speaks to our heart, your heart, with a message straight from God's heart. So let me ask, is your heart troubled right now? Is there something that's got you maybe a little spooked? Do you feel like there's something in the distance that's coming to attack? Are you afraid? Maybe you're afraid because of something going on in your finances. Maybe you're afraid of a struggle that's happening in your family. Maybe you just found out a change is coming in your job and it's not great. Maybe there are things going on in your health or the health of a loved one that have you worried. Or are you feeling maybe attacked in your faith itself? With questions that you wish you could ask, but you're just afraid to. Are you afraid because there's a relationship that's starting to show signs of strain and you might lose it? You know, there are times in our lives when we feel almost constantly attacked, constantly harassed. We're just waiting for the next shoe to drop, the next disaster to show itself in our lives. It seems like around every single corner, there's another predator just waiting to pounce. Jesus used that picture of the predator in his picture of the Good Shepherd as well. He said, "The wolf snatches them and scatters them." When a wolf attacks, it's trying to get the sheep to scatter and run. To run away from one another, to run away from the relative safety of the flock, to run away from the strength and the protection of their shepherd. Because once they're away from one another, once they're away from their shepherd, sheep are really easy prey. So if you've been feeling like you've been under attack lately, if you're feeling a little bit harassed by something in your life, you're right. You are under attack. You are being harassed. Because Satan is constantly prowling, constantly harassing us as God's people. And he will use anything and everything in his power to make us afraid so that we run. So that we run away from one another, feeling afraid to be vulnerable and share what's going on. He gets us to be afraid and run from our flock, from our Christian flock here. Maybe making us feel like we don't belong or that people just don't understand. Satan wants us especially to run away from our shepherd. Because if he can get us to run away far enough, And maybe we won't hear our shepherd's voice calling us back. And then we're just lost, wandering, alone, helpless sheep without a shepherd. I'm sorry. I did forget to share one thing about a shepherd that's pretty important. Shepherds walk in front of their sheep. Shepherds are always in front of their flock. That means that whatever is coming at the flock, the shepherd sees it first. That means that if an attack is coming, the shepherd fights it first. And whatever the sheep are going to walk through, the shepherd goes through it first. Jesus is the good, the perfect shepherd. That means that there is nothing that he has not gone through that you are going through. There is nothing that you're facing that he hasn't faced for you and before you. Attacks from Satan, Jesus faced it. Jesus went into the desert for 40 days and was attacked by Satan, but he didn't falter. He defeated him. Fear? Jesus faced it. In the Garden of Gethsemane, Jesus was afraid of what he was going to face when he went to the cross. But Jesus didn't falter. He didn't run. He walked straight to the cross. And death? Well, Jesus walked through the valley of the shadow of death before you. And he came out on the other side 3 days later. Jesus says, I lay down my life for my sheep. Jesus sees the attacks coming. He knows what dangers are lurking around the corner for you. But he is the good shepherd. He does not run from them. He does not flee when an attack comes. Instead, he stands and he fights. He protects you. He guards you. He takes the punishment on his own, even choosing to lay down his life instead of letting something happen to you. That's what he does as your good shepherd. No matter what it is you are facing, Jesus has faced it first. No matter what it is that you see coming, Jesus saw it coming long before you did. And no matter what it is that is attacking you, Jesus is standing there fighting it for you. Because Jesus is the good shepherd, keeps you safe. Now, sure, you're still going to see the teeth. And yes, you're going to hear the howls off in the distance, and you're going to feel a bit harassed. But nothing is going to harm you. Nothing can kill you eternally. Nothing can tear you away from the strong arms of your shepherd, because that's where you are. In his arms, as he carries you. And even if you do get spooked into running for a little while, even if you do find yourself feeling alone, feeling like you're wandering, feeling like you're a little bit helpless, Jesus doesn't leave you there alone. Instead, he relentlessly pursues you with everything he has until he finds you and can again scoop you up in his arms and carry you home. Isaiah said, he will tend his flock like a shepherd. He will gather the lambs in his arms. He will carry them in his bosom. That is Jesus. Emmanuel, God with us, God with you. Your good shepherd carrying you every step of the way. And that means that if he's carrying you, you're close to his heart. Because that's where you are for Jesus, right next to his heart as his little lamb. And no matter how big you get, no matter how grown you are, no matter how many years you've got behind you, you're still just Jesus' little lamb. Amen.